Alone at her twin's wedding, she wasn't expecting a billionaire to whisper, "Be my fake date." Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Today's story is titled, Alone at Her Twin's Wedding. She wasn't expecting a billionaire to whisper, "Be my fake date." Now, let's get back to our main character. The soft sound of music and laughter filled the golden ballroom. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above, catching every shimmer of silk and champagne. At a corner table marked, "Family," a young woman sat alone, her posture straight but her heart quietly sinking. Ava Dalton forced a smile as she watched her twin sister dance under a cascade of light. Everyone said the sisters looked identical, but tonight, Ava felt invisible. Her dress was simple, borrowed from a coworker at the diner where she worked. The heels pinched, and her makeup was a shade too pale, but she tried to blend in among people who spoke the language of money with effortless grace. Across the room, the bride laughed, radiant. Beside her new husband, a venture capitalist with perfect teeth and perfect timing. Ava lifted her glass of water, pretending it was champagne. She should have been happy. She told herself that over and over. This was her sister's big day, not a mirror to her own life. But as the music swelled and guests toasted to love and success, she felt a hollow ache that no smile could disguise. Her phone buzzed beneath the table, a text from her best friend, Lila. "Still alive?" Ava typed back. "Barely. Everyone looks like they stepped out of a magazine." Before she could hit send, a shadow crossed her table. A man's voice, low and calm, cut through the chatter. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" Ava looked up. He was tall, dark-haired, and far too composed for someone wandering through a wedding alone. His tuxedo fit like it had been tailored that morning, but his tie was slightly undone, giving him a carelessly magnetic air. I think it is," she said awkwardly. "Family table." "Perfect," he said with a quiet smile. "I need a seat that looks taken." She blinked. "Sorry?" He leaned closer, his voice dipping just enough for her to hear. "My ex-fiancée just walked in. She is with her father. If she sees me alone, she will assume she still has the upper hand. Please pretend you are with me, just for tonight." Ava froze, her mind spinning. "You want me to pretend to be your date?" "Yes," he said simply. "You would be doing me a huge favor." She almost laughed. "You are serious?" He glanced briefly across the room, then back at her. "Completely." Something in his tone, steady, calm, almost pleading, made her hesitate. Against her better judgment, she nodded. "Fine, but you owe me an explanation later." "Oh." He smiled, relief flickering across his face. "Deal." Just as the photographer passed, he reached for her hand. The touch was warm, deliberate, and surprisingly gentle. The camera flashed, capturing them mid-laughter, as if they had belonged together all along. Ava's pulse quickened. Across the room, a tall brunette froze, eyes narrowing. The billionaire's grip on Ava's hand tightened ever so slightly. "Thank you," he murmured. "For what?" she whispered. "For saving me." "Oh." Ava exhaled a laugh she did not quite feel. "You are welcome, stranger." "Not a stranger," he said. "Ethan Blake." The name landed like a spark. Ava had heard it before on business headlines, charity galas, and whispered conversations about one of New York's youngest self-made billionaires. The man sitting beside her was that Ethan Blake. She swallowed. "Of course you are." Ethan chuckled, his tone dry but kind. "And you are?" "Ava Dalton, the twin sister of the bride." "Ugh." "Well, Ava Dalton," he said, lifting a glass of champagne from a passing tray. "Thank you for rescuing me from a very awkward night." She smirked. "I am charging by the hour, you know." "Then I guess I should make the most of it." For a fleeting moment, their laughter blended with the music, soft and real. And for the first time that evening, Ava did not feel invisible. She felt seen. But as the crowd began to stir and the band shifted to a slower melody, Ethan's assistant appeared, whispering something urgent into his ear. His expression changed sharper, businesslike. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a silver-edged card, and handed it to her. "In case you ever need anything," he said quietly. "Truly." Ava looked down. Ethan Blake, CO Blake Industries. By the time she looked up, he was gone, swallowed by the glitter and gold of the wedding crowd. The music played on, but her mind was elsewhere. She slipped the card into her purse, not realizing that this simple favor, one moment of pretending, had already begun to change everything. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the cracked window of Ava's small apartment. The gown she had borrowed hung over a chair, wrinkled and lifeless, as if it too was exhausted from pretending to belong at that wedding. Her phone buzzed with a message from her twin, Grace. "Thank you for coming last night, sis. Sorry we did not get to talk much. Love you." Ava smiled faintly. "Love you too," she typed, then deleted the words before sending them. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the silver-edged business card she had tucked into her purse the night before. Ethan Blake. Even his name looked expensive. It had to be a joke, she thought. Maybe he gave it out to everyone. Maybe it was just polite. People like him did not actually mean it when they said, "Call me if you ever need anything." Still, she slid the card into her wallet, a small part of her refusing to throw away something that shimmered with possibility. The rest of the week passed in quiet routine. She worked double shifts at the diner, the air thick with the smell of coffee and bacon grease. Between tables, she wiped counters and practiced the art of pretending she was fine. Her coworkers chatted about streaming shows, rent hikes, and bad dates. No one knew about the man in the tuxedo who had asked her to pretend for one night. On Thursday, rain returned to the city. The neon signs outside blurred in the puddles as Ava finished her shift. She stepped out into the drizzle, pulling her worn jacket tighter. The sidewalks shimmered, and the sound of distant traffic filled the night. She was halfway to the subway when a black car slowed beside her. The window rolled down, and a familiar voice called out, "Ava Dalton?" She froze. Ethan Blake sat inside, framed by the glow of the dashboard lights. His suit was different this time, navy instead of black, but his calm expression was the same. "Ethan?" she said, surprised. "How did you—" "You left your earring," he said, holding up a small silver stud between his fingers. Ava blinked, confused. "That is not weight. How did you even find me?" He smiled faintly. "Your sister's wedding photographer posted the album. You were tagged. It was not hard." Her stomach tightened. "So you tracked me down for an earring that is not even mine?" "Maybe I wanted an excuse," he admitted simply. "Can I give you a ride home?" She hesitated, glancing at the rain. The streetlight flickered above them. "You do not even know where I live." He nodded toward the car door. "Then tell me." Against every sensible instinct, she got in. The interior smelled like leather and rain. City lights flashed across the tinted windows as the driver pulled away. "So," Ava said carefully, "you normally rescue random girls from weddings?" He chuckled. "No, you were a one-time emergency. That makes me feel special." "You should," he said, turning to look at her. "You handled that night better than most people I know would have." She felt her cheeks warm. "I just sat there and smiled. You saved me from a very messy confrontation. My ex-fiancée was supposed to announce her engagement that night to one of my board members. I was not supposed to care, but I did." Ava watched him quietly. Beneath the polished exterior, there was a trace of weariness. "So pretending helped you save face," she said. "Something like that," he admitted. "But that night made me think." "About what?" "About how easy it is to forget what is real." The car slowed at a red light. For a moment, silence filled the space between them. Outside, rain slid down the glass like threads of silver. He turned to her. "Ava, I have a proposal." She laughed lightly. "We already did the fake date thing, remember?" "This is different," he said. "I have a corporate gala next week. My investors expect me to bring a partner, and I do not want to deal with the press twisting my private life again. I need someone grounded, someone who can play along for one night. You are perfect for it." Her eyes widened. "You are asking me to pretend again?" "Yes," he said. "But this time, there will be compensation, a real contract. You will be paid, and I will make sure your name stays out of every headline." Ava stared at him. The absurdity of it clashed with the reality of her overdue rent and her mother's medical bills. "Ethan, this is insane." He nodded. "Probably, but it might help both of us." She exhaled slowly, torn between pride and practicality. "You barely know me." Maybe that is the point," he said softly. "You are the first person I have met in years who treated me like a person, not a headline." The light turned green. The car rolled forward, quiet except for the hum of the engine. Ava looked out the window, watching her reflection flicker against the city. She thought about her cramped apartment, her empty savings account, her sister's perfect life. "What happens if I say yes?" she asked. Ethan's voice was calm, measured. "Then you come to my office tomorrow morning. We sign the agreement. 3 events, 1 month. You get a generous payment and the freedom to walk away anytime." "And if I say no?" He smiled faintly. "Then I will thank you for last Saturday and never bother you again." She let out a slow breath, the choice hanging between them like a storm cloud. "You really do not make things simple, do you?" "Simple is overrated," he said quietly. The car stopped at her street. Ava opened the door but paused, rain misting her hair. "I will think about it." "Do that," Ethan replied, his voice low. "But if you decide yes, be at Blake Tower at 10 a.m. She stepped out, closing the door gently behind her. The car pulled away, disappearing into the rain. Ava stood on the sidewalk, the business card still in her purse, her heart caught between disbelief and a strange, dangerous hope. The next morning the city was alive with noise. Horns, footsteps, the buzz of early commuters. Ava stood in front of Blake Tower, clutching her umbrella like it might keep her grounded. The building rose into the clouds, all glass and steel and power, nothing like the world she knew. She checked her phone. 10 o'clock sharp. For a moment she considered turning back, but the image of her mother's overdue hospital bill burned behind her eyelids. She took a deep breath and stepped through the revolving doors. The lobby smelled like polished marble and quiet money. A receptionist in a navy suit greeted her with a practiced smile. "Good morning, may I help you?" "I have an appointment with Mr. Blake," Ava said, trying to sound calm. "Of course, he is expecting you." Minutes later, she was in a private elevator that hummed softly as it climbed toward the top floor. Her reflection stared back at her in the mirrored walls, nervous eyes, thrift store blazer, a girl trying to look like she belonged. When the doors opened, Ethan was waiting. He wore a charcoal suit, no tie, and that same calm expression she remembered from the car. "Ava," he said, smiling faintly, "you came." "I said I would think about it," she replied. "I thought about it. And? I need the money," she admitted. "But I'm not signing anything until I know exactly what this is." Ethan nodded. "Fair." He gestured toward his office. "Come in." The room was enormous floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, bookshelves lined with awards, a single black piano in the corner. On his desk lay a folder with her name printed neatly on the cover. "This is the contract," he said. "You will accompany me to 3 events this month. You will act as my partner in public. Nothing personal, nothing romantic. You will be compensated generously." She raised an eyebrow. "Define generously." $20,000 per event, plus wardrobe and travel. Ava almost choked. "That is insane." "It is business," Ethan said simply. "You would be helping me maintain an image that keeps investors calm. In return, you get financial breathing room, no strings attached." She flipped through the papers, scanning the neat clauses. There it was, no personal involvement, confidentiality required. "So basically, I am your temporary prop," she said quietly. He looked at her, unflinching. "You are more than that. You are someone I can trust to be real." Something in his voice softened her skepticism. She picked up the pen, hesitated, then signed her name. Ethan extended his hand. "Welcome to the contract, Miss Dalton." Her heart thudded as she shook it. "You make it sound like a job interview." "In a way, it is," he said with a small smile. "And like every job, you will need some training." She frowned. "Training?" He pressed a button on his desk phone. "Send in Claire." And a moment later, a poised woman in her 30s entered, carrying a tablet and a clipboard. "Ava, this is Claire, my assistant. She will help you with styling, etiquette, and media prep. Our first event is Saturday night." Ava blinked. "Saturday? As in 3 days from now?" "Yes. It is a charity gala. You will do great." Claire's tone was brisk but kind. "We have fittings scheduled this afternoon. I already have your measurements from the tailor." "My what?" Ava asked, startled. Ethan looked faintly amused. "I made an educated guess." By noon, Ava found herself standing on a raised platform in a luxury boutique, while stylists buzzed around her, pinning fabric and adjusting hemlines. She caught her reflection in the mirror, a transformation so surreal it made her heart twist. The woman staring back at her looked confident, graceful, someone who belonged in Ethan Blake's world. But behind the perfect curls and sequined gown was the same girl who counted tips at a diner. When she returned to Blake Tower later that evening, Ethan was finishing a call. He turned, his gaze sweeping over her in quiet approval. "You look incredible," he said simply. She rolled her eyes. "I look like someone else." "Sometimes that is the point," he replied. "Appearances are part of survival here." "Is that what this is for you?" she asked. "Survival?" His smile faded. "In a way. My father built this company from nothing. When he passed, every person in this building wanted to see if I could hold it. I cannot afford mistakes." Ava studied him. "And what am I? Your insurance policy?" "More like my ally," he said softly, "even if it is temporary." For a moment, they just looked at each other, two people from opposite worlds, bound by a contract neither fully understood. He cleared his throat and glanced at the clock. "Claire will brief you on protocol for Saturday. Black tie, press coverage expected. I will pick you up at 7. Ava nodded slowly. "All right." As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. "Ava." She looked back. "Do not let them intimidate you. You belong wherever you choose to stand." Her breath caught. For a man who lived behind walls of glass and power, his words carried surprising warmth. She gave a small nod, unable to hide the faint smile tugging at her lips. "Good night, Mr. Blake," she said. He smiled. "Good night, Ava." Outside, the city lights glittered against the darkening sky. She walked down the steps of Blake Tower, her reflection following her in the glass doors. The signed contract was folded carefully in her bag, a promise she did not yet know how to feel about. In 3 days, she would step into his world again, not as a waitress or a forgotten twin, but as the billionaire's partner. And though it was all pretend, Ava could not shake the feeling that something real had already begun. Saturday night arrived with the kind of glamour Ava had only ever seen in movies. The Grand Royale Hotel glittered like a palace, its marble floors gleaming beneath chandeliers that sparkled like frozen stars. Cameras flashed near the entrance, where black cars lined up one after another, releasing the city's most powerful people into the warm light of the gala. Ava sat inside Ethan's sleek car, trying not to fidget with the hem of her gown. The deep navy dress shimmered with every movement, hugging her form perfectly. Claire had insisted it matched Ethan's suit. Her hair was swept into a soft updo, a diamond pendant catching the light at her throat. Ethan glanced at her. "You look stunning," he said quietly. She gave a small, nervous laugh. "You keep saying that like it is supposed to make me forget I am about to embarrass you in front of half your investors." He smiled. "You will not embarrass me. Just stay close, smile when I nod, and if anyone asks, we met at a charity event last month." "Right," she said. "A very believable lie." "It only needs to sound true," Ethan replied as the car stopped. The door opened, and the night exploded with flashbulbs. Ethan stepped out first, offering his hand. Ava took it, the warmth of his palm grounding her as they faced the crowd together. The photographers shouted his name, lights strobing around them. Ethan placed a steadying hand at the small of her back. Inside the ballroom, music drifted through the air, smooth and elegant. Waiters moved like shadows carrying trays of champagne. Ethan guided her from conversation to conversation with effortless grace, introducing her as if she had always been part of his world. "This is Ava Dalton," he said more than once, his voice calm. "Sure, she has a brilliant mind for people." She smiled, said polite words, and prayed her hands did not shake when she held a glass. The night was dizzying, a blur of polite laughter, whispered compliments, and the low hum of expensive confidence. At one point, a tall man approached, his tone too casual to be friendly. "So this is the mystery woman. I did not think Ethan Blake would settle down so soon after the breakup." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I prefer not to discuss the past, Victor." Victor smirked. "Of course not. Enjoy the evening." He walked away, leaving a faint chill behind. Ava leaned closer. "That was him, was it not? The board member your ex is engaged to?" Ethan nodded once, his voice low. "Do not let him bother you." She hesitated, then said softly, "You handled that well." "So did you," he replied. "I knew you would." Hours later, as the event wound down, Ava found herself standing with Ethan on the terrace. The city stretched below them, lights glittering like constellations. The air was cool, the music faint through the open doors. "You did great tonight," Ethan said, setting his glass down. "Better than great." Ava smiled. the tension finally easing from her shoulders. I was just trying not to trip in these shoes. He chuckled, but his gaze lingered on her a moment longer than necessary. Maybe this arrangement will not be as difficult as I thought. She met his eyes, unsure what to say. For the first time, the line between pretending and feeling seemed less clear, and somewhere between the city lights and the soft sound of his voice, Ava realized that the act had begun to feel a little too real. The following week moved like a dream Ava could not quite wake from. Headlines about Ethan Blake's new mystery partner filled gossip sites, each photo showing her in the navy gown, smiling beside him. The comments ranged from curious to cruel. Some called her elegant, others called her a gold digger. She tried to ignore them, but the words stuck like thorns. At the diner, her coworker Lila grinned, sliding a newspaper across the counter. Ava Dalton, socialite. Who would have thought? Ava rolled her eyes. Please, stop. It was one night. A job. Lila raised an eyebrow. A job that comes with designer dresses and a billionaire on speed dial. Before Ava could answer, her phone buzzed. Ethan's name appeared on the screen. Lunch. Noon. My driver will pick you up. Her stomach fluttered. She typed back, fine, but no fancy restaurant. At noon sharp, a car arrived. When she climbed in, Ethan was already waiting, phone in hand, suit perfectly pressed. How is my favorite partner today? He asked, half smiling. Tired, she said honestly. Everyone suddenly wants to know my life story. You are trending, he said lightly. That comes with the territory. She sighed. I am not built for this territory. Ethan studied her quietly. You handled the gala with grace. You impressed people I have spent years trying to charm. Maybe they were just surprised you showed up with someone who laughs at your jokes, she teased. He chuckled. That might be true. They arrived at a quiet cafe near the river, the kind of place that smelled like roasted coffee and old books. No paparazzi, no flashing lights, just sunlight spilling across the wood tables. For the first time, Ava felt like they were two ordinary people. Halfway through lunch, Ethan's phone rang. His tone shifted instantly, crisp and controlled. Yes, I saw the report. Tell Victor the numbers speak for themselves. He hung up, tension shadowing his face. Ava leaned forward. Business trouble? He hesitated. Bored politics. Some of them think I am distracted. Because of me? Because I am human, he said softly. That is apparently a flaw in my position. Something in his voice carried exhaustion deeper than wealth could hide. Ava reached for her coffee, choosing her words carefully. You know, pretending to have a heart is not the worst thing for a CEO, Ethan smiled faintly. You are the only one who can say that to me and get away with it. Later that afternoon, they visited a children's charity his company supported. Cameras followed, but Ava forgot about them the moment a little boy tugged her hand, showing her his drawing of a rocket. She knelt beside him, listening, laughing, completely genuine. Ethan watched from a distance, something shifting in his expression. For once, he did not look like a man guarding an empire. He looked like someone remembering what it meant to feel. As they left, he opened the car door for her. You were wonderful in there, he said quietly. She shrugged. They just needed someone to listen. Exactly, he replied. That is something money cannot buy. Oh. The car pulled away, city lights beginning to glow against the dusk. For the first time since their deal began, silence between them felt easy, comfortable. Ava glanced out the window and whispered, For a fake relationship, this is starting to feel a lot like the real thing. Ethan looked at her, his voice low and steady. Maybe that is what makes it work. Neither of them said more, but both knew something had changed, something no contract could define. That night, Ava sat by her window, staring at the glittering skyline that stretched beyond her tiny apartment. The city looked so different from up close, loud, alive, and impossibly far from the quiet world she used to know. Her phone buzzed with another notification. An article headline flashed across the screen. Who is Ava Dalton? The woman behind Ethan Blake's sudden smile. She closed the app quickly, but her heart still raced. Somewhere between pretending and reality, the line had blurred. The next day, Ethan invited her to his penthouse for dinner. No cameras, no pretense, he had said on the phone. Just us. When she arrived, she was stunned by the view. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the city spread like a sea of stars. The space was warm, filled with the faint scent of cedar and something familiar, Fresh basil, maybe. Ethan greeted her at the door, sleeves rolled up, apron on. "Do not look so shocked," he said with a grin. "I can cook. A little." "You? The man who probably has a private chef for every meal?" "Even CEOs get tired of takeout," he said. "Dinner is simple. Pasta and conversation." Ava laughed softly. "That sounds dangerously normal." They ate by the window, the city glowing behind them. For once, Ethan did not look like the man in the headlines. He was relaxed, thoughtful, almost vulnerable. "Can I ask you something?" Ava said after a quiet moment. He nodded. "What happened between you and your ex?" Ethan took a long breath. "We were engaged for convenience. The merger between our family's companies was supposed to make sense, but she wanted power, not partnership. When I called it off, I became the villain in every story she told." Ava's expression softened. "So you created this contract with me to control the narrative." "At first, yes," he admitted. "But now, I am not so sure what it is anymore." She felt her pulse quicken. "You mean the contract?" He met her gaze, steady but quiet. "I mean us." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them seemed to hum with something unspoken. Then Ethan looked away, forcing a small smile. "We should keep things professional, right? That was the rule." "Right," Ava echoed, though her voice wavered. When she left later that night, the city air felt cooler than before. She wrapped her coat tighter, but it did not stop the warmth in her chest. Over the next few days, their partnership changed in ways neither mentioned. Ethan began calling just to ask how her day was. He started showing up at the diner, sitting in the corner booth with his laptop, pretending to read while she served coffee. He laughed more, smiled more, and when their eyes met, there was always that same quiet spark. One evening, after closing the diner, Ava walked him out to his car. The street was nearly empty, the air thick with the scent of rain. "You know this cannot last forever," she said softly. "I know," he replied, "but I'm starting to wish it could." Their eyes met, and for the first time, Ethan did not look like a billionaire or a businessman. He just looked like a man, one who had finally found something real in a world built on appearances. Ava stepped back, heart pounding. "Good night, Ethan." He hesitated before saying, "Good night, Ava." When she walked away, he watched until she disappeared into the glow of the streetlights, wondering when pretending had stopped feeling like a lie. 2 weeks later, everything began to unravel. It started with whispers, online photos of Ava and Ethan leaving the children's charity together, headlines questioning whether their relationship was a publicity stunt. Then came something worse. One morning, Ava walked into the diner and found Lila holding a tablet, her face pale. "Ava, you need to see this." The screen showed a news article, "Blake's new girlfriend, exposed former waitress paid to play the part." Below it was a leaked image of the signed contract, her signature clear beneath the company letterhead. Her heart stopped. Where did they get that? "Someone leaked it," Lila whispered. "It says the board is investigating him for misconduct." Ava's phone buzzed nonstop calls from unknown numbers, reporters asking for statements. She ignored them all and ran outside, her breath shaking in the cold morning air. By noon, Ethan's assistant called. "Mr. Blake wants to see you immediately." When Ava arrived at his office, the air was heavy with tension. Ethan stood by the window, the skyline reflected in his eyes. "Victor leaked it," he said quietly. "He wants my position. He thinks if he ruins my reputation, the board will turn against me." Ava's voice trembled. "And me? What happens to me now?" Ethan turned, his expression filled with guilt. "They are painting you as someone who sold your dignity for money." "I am so sorry, Ava." Tears stung her eyes. "I trusted you, Ethan. You said this was just a business arrangement. You promised no one would get hurt." "I know," he said, stepping closer. "I will fix it." "How?" she asked, her voice breaking. "By telling them it was all pretend, that I was just another name on a contract?" He hesitated, and that silence said everything. Ava shook her head and backed away. "You cannot fix this. You already did enough." Before he could stop her, she turned and left, pushing through the glass doors into the blinding afternoon light. Cameras flashed as she passed, reporters shouting her name, but she did not look back. For the first time since their paths had crossed, Ava felt completely alone, and this time, it was not an act. 3 days passed in silence. Ava stayed inside her apartment, curtains drawn, Her phone turned face down on the table. The noise outside did not stop news anchors speculating, strangers on the internet arguing about her life as if she were a headline, not a person. Each comment felt like a bruise that would not fade. On the fourth morning, there was a knock at her door. When she opened it, a delivery man stood there holding a sealed envelope and a single white rose. Inside was a handwritten note. "Meet me tonight, no cameras, no contracts, just truth. Ethan." Part of her wanted to throw it away. Another part needed answers. By sunset, she found herself standing outside the same river cafe where they had shared their first quiet lunch. The lights reflected on the water, soft and golden. Ethan was waiting inside. No suit, no guards, just a man who looked like he had not slept in days. He stood when she entered. "Ava, thank you for coming." She crossed her arms. "Say what you need to say." He met her eyes. "I called a press conference for tomorrow. I'm going to tell them everything, that you had nothing to do with the leak, that I was the one who started this arrangement, that I was the one who blurred the line." Her breath caught. "You will destroy your reputation." Ugh. He nodded slowly. "Then at least I will lose it for the right reason." For the first time in days, Ava saw the sincerity in his eyes. No walls, no performance, just truth. And even through the anger and hurt, her heart began to tremble with something that still felt a lot like love. The next morning, the world watched as Ethan Blake stood before a wall of cameras. His voice was calm but steady. "The contract was real," he said, "but the story they told was not. Ava Dalton is not a liar, and she is not for sale. If anyone is to blame, it is me. I asked her to pretend for my convenience, and somewhere along the way, I forgot it was pretend." The room fell silent. Reporters lowered their microphones, unsure how to follow a confession that sounded more like an apology to the world and to her. Later that day, Ava walked along the river, the same place where they had met the night before. She found him waiting by the water, the city glowing behind him. "You did not have to do that," she said quietly. "Yes, I did," he replied. "I lost everything that did not matter to keep the one thing that does." He reached into his pocket and held out the silver ring she had worn at the gala. "This time, no contracts, no pretending, just us." Tears welled in her eyes as she took his hand. "Then this time I am saying yes." And under the fading sunset, their story once built on pretense became something beautifully, undeniably real.